No, it's too high. Let's just take some of those away. And then we'll go. I'll put those over there, and I'll grab a bunch as we go. So if I do that, there we go.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
We're live. Sweet, sweet. All right, we'll just let it roll for a minute. We got Brian Herring here signing some photos for us. So we're gonna let him do his thing and sign some photos while people join up. If you guys have questions, toss them in the comments. We are seeing them on the screen. We have some questions that were pre-asked that we'll ask Brian. And if you have any others, if you didn't see those posts before, feel free to post some questions now, and we'll pass those along. We'll probably be about 10 minutes, so not a real long live session here, but we'll get as many questions in as we can. So give it a couple minutes, and we will start asking some questions. Right now, Brian's actually signing. He signed some 8x10s and some 11x14s that we're going to use in the Pristine Acts of Kindness. If you guys have seen those, we send those out randomly in packages for you guys. And so before we officially do that, we'll put a blast out in the Pristine community and on social media, so you guys have a heads up on what day that we're going to be doing those. So keep an eye out on our social media pages, and we'll let you know about that. If you haven't already, make sure you guys turn on notifications, because sometimes we do these and we don't know exactly when we're going live. So hit that notification button, and you'll get notifications when we go live.
Actually, let me open it up.
Huh?
I said, actually, let me open it up.
Open what up?
The live stream.
Oh, let you. Yeah. No, you're actually working now.
Always, Gavin.
Mm-hmm. No, we're doing giveaways.
We are?
Heck
Today?
yeah.
Are we really?
I mean, not live, but here's what we'll do, guys. We're gonna have Brian sign some pop figures, and he's signing pictures. So we'll give away a couple of those. We'll give away at least 2 things. All you got to do is leave a comment and like the feed, and then you'll be in on that. So we will choose winners on those on what is today? Thursday. We'll choose a couple winners on Monday. Jordan or Nathaniel will reach out to you. And and pick some winners on those. So all you gotta do, leave a comment, anything, say hi, ask a question, and then there's another Brian Herring here, look at that, who says his signature's way better. I don't know, Brian's signature's pretty on point, man, with the BB-8, love it. Got a little artistic flair to it.
Is it Brian Herring, the basketball player?
Is there a basketball player, Brian Herring?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. All right, so let's jump in, Brian. If you want to maybe kind of the first question people were asking was from William. He said, "How did you get into puppeteering?"
I started as an actor, and I was running around doing a bit of that for a while. And I basically lied at an audition for a TV show. I got in on an audition for a show called Spitting Image, which was a satirical puppet show that ran through the late 80s and early 90s. In the UK, and they took me on as a trainee, and then they took me on, trained me up, and about 6 weeks later I was on TV. And at that point I suddenly thought, oh, this is okay, I can do this. So I kept chipping away at that, and I was an assistant puppeteer, so I was doing people's arms and eyes and crazy stuff like that. And then I went off and just started assisting those same guys from that cast in their other shows. They were getting other TV shows. So I just jobbed around, started getting my own work, went to work for the Jim Henson Company for about 10 years in the UK, did everything they did in England for 10 years. And then I started working on movies. And one of the movies I worked on was for a gentleman called Neil Scanlon. And we got on very well, and Neil and I, we went off and did a job in Ireland. And Neil won his Oscar for a film called Babe, the thing about the sheep pig. And then Neil wound up as the head of the creature department for Prometheus, and I went to work for him on that. And then I randomly rang him with a question one day, and we were chatting away about the industry, and I was looking for work. And I'd said, oh, now I've got to find out who's got Star Wars and kick his door in. And he said, well, don't do that, I like the door where it is. And he said, don't worry, I'll find you something. And he did. So he took me on as the puppeteer consultant for The Force Awakens, and I was on that job for 16 months, I think. And during that period, we were working out how to make sort of the Happerbores run around and the various other creatures and crazy big monsters come to life. And then little designs started coming through from a chap called Jake Lunt Davis, and they were for this little round robot. And so Neil tasked a gentleman called Josh Lee, who is, I regard him as BB-8's dad, and he started coming up with ways to make it work, and he built this tiny little puppet about this big, and I did some tests for that, and they showed it to JJ. JJ liked it, and then Josh went away with a gentleman called Matt Denton, who's very clever animatronics programming, does all kinds of crazy and clever stuff, and Josh and Matt and Giles Hannigan between them built BB-8, and they're different versions of it. And the version that I was mostly concerned about was that one, so the one with the rods on. So myself and another puppeteer, who's a very old friend of mine called Dave Chapman, we spent a fortnight in a sound stage with the different versions of BB-8, just trying to find his personality and work out how he would run around and go, just make him look sad, make him look happy, how fast he would run, what that walk would be like. So would his body wobble? Does he stay stock still when he's not moving? So we worked all that stuff out, and away we went. Really, that's
just looking at this picture here, which is really cool. Actually, what is this actually the unit independent, and then something's grabbing onto it, or is this all?
No, that's an axle. So that axle runs through. I push him around like a lawnmower.
Oh, okay. So it runs actually through it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he rolls on that, and I can tilt the body as I go by using one of these rods.
Oh.
So that will make the body do this. Now the head controls on the other rod. So I'll have it's basically like a pair of handlebars. So I'll have pitch and roll. So I can make, by moving the rod this way, I can make the head go around the body, and then by pushing it forwards and backwards, it will go forward, like run over the body. And then Dave Chapman has the yaw control, which controls the eye line. So I position the head, and Dave makes sure his eyes point in the right direction, which is an extremely tricky thing to do because he's doing it from a monitor on the other side of the set. So he has to be on his game all the time. So between us, we make that little fella work like that.
So how often, of course I'm just throwing all my questions out, I'm getting your questions, don't worry. So how often in Star Wars is BB-8 CGI versus you're actually physically?
He is mostly a practical effect most of the time.
Yeah.
There is CGI involved in every single shot of BB-8 because unless we use the Wiggler, which is an animatronic one that sits on a plate, and that just, you bury the plate in the sand and he turns. And
Right, he's not actually going to move around.
He's not going to roll anywhere. But ILM have had their print, they've got their fingerprints everywhere because they'll just remove me from all of this. And there's another version of it, which is a trike, which is the same kind of setup, but it's got a big drive system on the back. And Dave and Matt do that one because Matt's a better driver than I am. So they run that around, and then they remove the wheels later. So, but he's mostly done as a practical effect because JJ wanted to make a really practical movie, and he wanted to do fundamentally a sequel to Return of the Jedi, like it was 1985. So it involved guys in rubber suits, people in animatronic heads, although there weren't that many animatronics back then, but he really wanted it to be real sets, practical effects, real explosions, and so they tried to keep BB-8 as practical as possible. There are some shots where it's CGI. I mean, when he's swinging around on wires,
Sure.
we can't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So I guess that leads into this question. Mike asked, what type of land, grass, dirt, pavement, etc. is the easiest to move BB-8 around on, and which is the most difficult?
the easiest is a nice flat studio floor because you could just roll him around. It's great.
Yeah.
The difficult stuff, sand's pretty tough.
Sure.
Just because you don't know, the soft sand and hard sand, you know what you're going to hit next, especially if you're running, and especially if it's hot because he's not light. So that's kind of tough. Also, the forest where we were running him around for Force Awakens, that was kind of treacherous as well because it had been raining, and so it was kind of muddy and slippery.
Nice. All right, and then one Eric asked, is BB-8 going to be in the upcoming trilogy after Rise of the Skywalk?
I have no idea. I don't know what that's about. I know as much as you guys. I know as much as you guys. I would imagine not, because I think it's all going to be new characters. But again, I have no insider knowledge of that whatsoever. Quiet you. I have no knowledge of it. Oh, he's just told you he's going to be in it or not. So if you can work out what he said, then off you go. But no, I know nothing about it. I'd love to get a job on that.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I guess we'll take probably a couple more. I think there were some in the live feed, and then Nathaniel's mic'd up today. Welcome, Nathaniel.
Yo.
Nathaniel will ask a couple questions that we had seen in the feed before we after we had printed the questions that we already had.
Yeah, let's get to.
Maybe just do like two or three more, and then we'll close it out.
Let's see. Of course.
So while Nathaniel's looking, guys, don't forget, we're going to give away a Brian Herring signed photo and a pop figure. He's going to sign the pop figures here shortly. All you got to do is just like the feed and leave a comment of any kind, and we'll get you in on that. And Nathaniel and/or Jordan will pick the winners on Monday for that.
All right, so how concerned were you and perhaps the rest of the production about the fan base accepting the BB-8 character?
It was a bit of a worry. I mean, I was a Star Wars fan in '77. I was 7 years old when the film came out, and it absolutely blew me away. So to be involved with it even slightly would have been, a great treat. But to actually have done something like this is, living the dream is a very overused term. But this is kind of the most amazing job you could ever want to get. So I was hoping that BB-8 would be something that could sit beside R2-3PO, Yoda, and Chewie. And you could look at it and go, well, that is something from the same story, from the same universe. And it would be, be enjoyed by the generation that these Star Wars movies are being made for. We knew we thought we were going to be okay, because the crew at Pinewood quite liked it. And you can tell if a British film crew don't like what you're doing. So they were always quite pleased to see the droid, and we had a bit of a laugh with them, so they were always quite good with us. When the first trailer dropped, there was a certain amount of backlash where people were going, they've made a toy commercial, and it's all done with CGI. And then luckily Mark Hamill jumped on the internet and said, you do know that's a real thing, and I've been playing with it. And so suddenly, the mood changed a little, and then the film came out, and people just, embraced the little fella, which was great. So what also helped is that when, while we were making the movie, Matt and Josh felt they had unfinished business. And while we were making The Force Awakens, Josh was busy on his computer with Matt, trying to work out how to do it, so it would work with his head rolling around on a free-rolling ball. So I'd wrapped on the film, and Dave and I were off doing a commercial we were in South Africa, and they did the Anaheim celebration, and out rolls BB-8 on stage, and that was the first time I'd seen it. And it was just the most amazing thing going. And I think so there were a lot of people that thought that was how we did it in the movie. So everybody was just like, oh, they've actually got this robot. Then it kind of came out later on that there were 7 different versions of it. But what is nice is that he does have it has its own life now outside of the films. So he'll show up to places and people just lose their minds, which is great. And then of course the droid builders all jumped on it as well, because there's this army of hobbyists around the world, these really, really clever guys who make R2-D2s in their garages, and they started trying to work out how to do it, and they nailed it really fast as well. So what's lovely is, like, you go off to conventions and you see the R2-D2 Builders Club and the BB-8 Builders Club, and they've made their own. and now they're doing them in different colours and they've got different heads on them, and it's just sort of a thing that's grown, which is really sweet. And I just think that's brilliant. So it's nice that the people have sort of taken it to their hearts, and it's become quite popular.
Awesome. You got one more?
We could do a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
The same person said that you were a cool guy and they'd like to get a beer with you.
Oh, that's very nice of them. I like a beer.
So, along with that, he also asked what your favorite beer is.
Oh goodness. I drink Corona actually. I know it's terrible. Everyone's like, oh, it's an awful beer, but I can function on Corona, so it's good. It's not. I can't do falling over beer. You know, the really strong stuff. I've hit an age now where a hangover will last me 3 days. So Corona's a nice sort of soft drink I can get on with.
All right, so
drink responsibly, kids.
Yeah. So Brian is actually here in town. We're for those who don't know, we're here in Phoenix. If you want to come by and see him, he will be at Phoenix. What do we call it? Fan Fusion / Comic Con, but we can't officially say Comic Con if you're in the Phoenix Fan Fusion world. Anyway, so Brian has that coming up, and then if you're not in Phoenix and you're in some other spots, he's got a couple others.
There's a few others around. I think we're going to Dragon Con in Atlanta this year, Dave and myself, so that will be fun. Dragon Con's always good. And I'm going to be in Antwerp, and that's the first time I've ever done a show in Antwerp, so that'll be fun. I've got that written down somewhere. Let me tell you when the dates are. Hang on. Antwerp is in September 14th, 15th, and Colorado Springs, August 23rd and 25th as well, which is going to be good fun too.
Perfect. So definitely come out and see him. And then what days are you at Phoenix Comic Con?
I'm there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Thursday today. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come by and see Brian at his booth. You can get your own item signed there. Get a picture, say hi. And thank you guys for joining us. And don't forget, make sure you leave a comment and like the feed, and then we'll get you in on the giveaway for a couple Brian Herring signed items. Did we have that one last question? We actually had I think someone was asking what the storyline of the...
Oh yeah, the trilogy?
Yeah. What's the next... What
of the Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah. Do you have some inside info on what that...
Oh yeah, I can tell you the whole plot.